Hi everyone, here we are back in our course materials for week 2. So this is your week 2 overview. So this week we're going to be talking about selecting books for young readers. This is kind of launching us into how do we choose books for kids, what all do we have to consider, and it will start to expose you to even more book selections. We are going to have a chat on Monday, January 23rd, starting at 5 o'clock. Here you'll see your objectives and your tasks for the week. Remember, this is like a little checklist for you, and I recommend you use it as a checklist so that you don't miss anything. So if you click on the week 2 folder, here you have the presentation slides for the week. These are not narrated, so they don't have audio attached to them, but I know some students like to download these and print them to make notes on while we're in class, or to just have them on your computer typing notes as we're going through class. I am fine with either of those options, but they're there for you. On, I think, the second or third slide of this presentation, you'll also see our agenda for class on Monday, so you know what to expect. You'll also see weekly readings that are not part of the textbook, so you have 2 textbook chapters to read this week. You can see those on the syllabus or on the previous page, but you also have some literature to read. So you only have to choose one of these 4 books. Now, if you click on these links, they will take you to YouTube trailers for the book. These are usually made by the author in some cases, or by just fans of the book that want to tell you what the book's about. These are intended to help you select which book you read. Now, as I've mentioned, these 4 books are nice overviews of children's literature as far as the types of themes that come out in children's literature, the types of settings and characters, and they're written by authors that are really important to children's literature. Raymie Nightingale, for example, is by Kate DiCamillo, who's a very popular author. She often wins the Newbery. She wrote Because of Winn-Dixie. She wrote Flora and Ulysses. She wrote Tuck Everlasting. So lots of great books there. The Year of Billy Miller was written by Kevin Hankes, who wrote Owen and Chrysanthemum and Lily's Purple Plastic Purse. So also very prolific. You'll also see here your week 2 discussion. So every week, from week 2 to week 7, you're going to have discussion questions. So you're going to actually write these questions, each person in the class. So you will write 2 questions that pertain to the course readings. So this is the the chapters from the textbook. Sorry, I was having trouble getting that phrased. So the chapters from the textbook, 2 questions that came to mind as you read. Think about how these chapters and what we're talking about relate to children's literature. They can also come from the course content here. Also, one of the questions will come from the book you read. So think about in your book themes, think about characters, think about setting, think about genre, think about what children can learn if they're reading this book or if you're doing a read aloud with the book to your kids. Think about what they learn about other children and perspective. And you can also even consider how these books would be used in a classroom. So if I were reading Raymie Nightingale to my class and I was teaching 3rd grade, I would probably read this out loud, so short chapter book. What kinds of activities would I do with the book? How would I bring them into it? Because you know different students in the class will be reading a different book, try to keep your questions for the books kind of open, but they can be comparisons. So you could say, based on, Raymie Nightingale, about a little girl whose parents are split up, and so she comes from a home that's not just two family members. How is that similar or different to your book? Because maybe in a different book that looks very different. So that can give you kind of a way to do the questions. You'll post your questions by Wednesday night, and you get 2.5 points for posting questions and for them being thoughtful questions that require some critical thinking. And then by Monday before our class, you'll respond to 2 of your peers' questions. And so what this will allow us to do is have kind of a jumping off point for next week, but it'll just get you to think a little bit more critically about the literature and about the course content from the chapters. And then the last thing here is your link to Blackboard Collaborate. So you'll click on this link and it will take you to Blackboard Collaborate, to our classroom, and you'll be able to join the room here. You'll click that and it'll prompt you to download the Blackboard Classroom, and then it will automatically load it up. When you enter the classroom, you'll be able to see the slides, you'll be able to chat with me, and you'll be able to see your peers. If you're going to be logging in by phone, you'll also see that information here. Every week this link will be available to you in our folder, so you should not have any problems there. The other thing for this week, you have your first assignment due other than the discussion. So you're going to want to come back to this main page and you're going to want to go to the course assignment descriptions. Author study is due Monday, January 30th. So I'm going to talk about this briefly at the end of our chat on Monday. But here you'll see the directions, the rubric, and the submission tabs. This is where you're going to come to submit. I do recommend you look at this rubric and directions before Monday night so that I can answer any specific questions you have, and it won't be the first time that you're seeing this. Also for the author study, something that you will find useful that I talked about in the tutorial is the scholarly articles resources. So if you click on this folder, you'll see a bunch of articles. There's about a dozen here, and I'll be adding to this as I come across newer articles. But this will give you a jumping off point for scholarly research that is attached to children's literature. You do have to do some of your own research. You cannot have all of your sources come from here, but this can give you a nice jumping off point, give you authors to look for, journals to look for. You can use references from these journals and find those. So that will definitely be useful to you. The last thing that will be helpful is if you go back to the course assignments. I'm kind of jumping around here. This first folder that says Assistance in Finding Scholarly Sources gives you a 3-step guide to conducting your search. So ways to narrow your topic, how you choose keywords, because you have to search keywords and often that gets students kind of mixed up with their research. But you can click here on conducting your research and it'll take you to the USM library page. You'll have to sign in, and EBSCO, which is my favorite platform for finding sources related to education. This education research guide here was created by our librarian here at the University of Southern Mississippi, and it has links to children's literature and young adult literature, which will help you find some research. It'll also take you just to different elementary ed. So you can go to different guides here, but it will help you find articles if that's what you're wanting to do. It takes you to Education Source, which is the database I like to use, ERIC. You can look at videos, so a lot of great resources here. So I highly recommend using those resources because they will help you as you do your research. So that's week 2. If you have questions, let me know.